Fallout 4 is one huge game. There is so much to explore, so much to do, so many quests to get stuck into, and so many decisions you can make to totally alter the later parts of the game, and with all of that comes the increased chances of making some pretty huge mistakes that can make the later stages of the game a total nightmare for you. So in this video, I'll be covering some major later game mistakes you need to be avoiding in Fallout 4, and don't worry, this video is spoiler free, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. So, number 1, spreading perk points too thinly. And by the time you reach the mid to late stages of Fallout 4, you should have a pretty clear idea of your preferred playstyle, but you may also realise that you've been spreading your perk points too thin rather than going down a specific build, meaning you end up being a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Now, doing this ultimately limits your effectiveness in the later stages of the game when things really start to get tough. So instead, by this stage of the game, you really want to be focusing your perk points to go down a specific path, so whether that be damage, defense, crafting, or stealth focused, instead of spreading them over a bit of everything, so a wide range of perks. You do not want to be a jack of all trades in Fallout 4, it is not good for you at all. Number 2, ignoring defensive perks. Now, regardless of your playstyle, you're going to be getting involved in combat of some form or another in Fallout 4. It is inevitable. But a huge mistake a lot of players make, and a huge mistake you need to be avoiding, is ignoring any defensive perks and instead going exclusively for offensive ones instead, because, for want of a better phrase, you don't want to end up becoming a glass cannon. Of course, don't fully ignore offensive perks because they are incredibly useful as well, but you absolutely should be investing in some defensive perks in equal measure. So I'm talking about perks like Toughness, Adamantium Skeleton, and Life Giver, amongst others. Number 3, not using the modding systems. Now, I'm not talking about PC mods here, where you can turn the Commonwealth into literally anything you want to, but instead I'm talking about weapon mods, armor mods, that sort of thing. Earlier in the game you may not have the resources or the perks to actually craft these modifications, but in the later stages of the game you absolutely should have these things, and not using them is a huge mistake because using weapon and armor mods can be absolute game changers. You can get all sorts of things like better scopes, better barrels, armor linings. Now these things can turn decent gear into legendary gear, not literally, but better gear anyway, and in turn it can allow you to evolve into an efficient monster killing machine, so don't neglect those mods. Number 4, neglecting settlement defenses. Now settlements can play a major part in Fallout 4, and they can be incredibly useful for a number of reasons, but further into the game you get, the more settlements you've linked up, the more and more you'll find them getting attacked, which isn't ideal, and a lot of players just slap a few beds down, slap a few crops down, and call it a day. Myself included, to be honest, when I first played the game, when it first came out all those years ago. But just doing that and not actually investing in defense is a pretty big mistake for a number of reasons. The first of those reasons being, if it gets attacked and you've got no defense in place, it can result in a loss of resources, damaged infrastructure, decreased settler happiness, decreased production, and so on and so forth. But also, the higher your settlement's defense rating is, the less chance it'll actually get attacked, and having adequate defenses, alongside food, water, and beds and that sort of stuff, will contribute to settler happiness as well. And if you're playing in survival mode, your settlements will be getting attacked more often, so having a strong defense system, including things like turrets, armed settlers, guard posts, strategically placed walls and barriers, is absolutely essential to protecting them, so do not neglect them later on in the game. Number 5, overcommitting to a single weapon type. Now, there are a number of different weapon types in Fallout 4, so including things like your regular ballistic weapons, energy weapons, radiation weapons, melee weapons, amongst others, and the mistake I see a lot of players making is overcommitting to a single weapon type. Now, why is this a mistake? Well, the obvious answer is because different enemies in Fallout are weaker to some weapon types and basically immune to others. For example, robots and super mutants, amongst others, are immune to radiation poison, so using radiation weapons against them is literally useless. So this is where having a variety of weapon types comes very much in handy when you're coming up against a wider variety of tougher enemies who could be immune to one type of weapon, and even less effective to another. It is also useful to have multiple weapon types going along as well, because that should also mean you're not running out of ammo, especially if you're playing in survival mode where ammo is more scarce. Number 6. Neglecting power armor maintenance. The further into Fallout 4 you get, the tougher enemies become, and sometimes the more hazardous the environments become alongside them. So you may well be tempted to get stuck into using the power armor. I mean, that's what it's there for, right? After all, it can be your best friend in seriously tense situations, whether you're up against an extremely harsh environment like the glowing sea, or perhaps you've popped around a corner and a deathclaw just happens to spring out and attack you. The mistake a lot of players make, especially when they're using power armor quite a lot, is not maintaining it properly. Instead, they leave it rusting in the garage with broken limbs and no fusion cores in it. Don't do that. You want to keep it repaired, stock up on fusion cores, and bring it out for tough fights, because you'll thank yourself later when you're shrugging off mini nukes instead of getting absolutely vaporized. But one thing I will note with regards to power armor is it's not always needed. So don't go burning through fusion cores and damaging your armor just to kill a few ghouls, mole rats, or bloat flies, all that sort of thing. Make sure you only use your power armor when you actually need it, and just as importantly, don't forget where you've stored the damn thing. Number 7. Not using chems and buffs to your advantage. There are a number of chems, buffs, food, and drinks that you can consume in Fallout 4, which will give you a variety of performance or mood enhancing effects to your character. So I'm talking about things like increased strength, increased damage resistance, or improved agility and hit points, and so on and so forth. These things can be incredibly useful in tough fights, and without some of these chems or buffs, these already challenging encounters become even more challenging still. Now, a lot of players may think that using chems is cheating, or perhaps they worry about addiction, but late game enemies in Fallout 4 are tough, real tough, especially if you're playing in survivor mode, and proper chem use can mean the difference between victory and a reload. Now, don't forget to use them, especially for boss fights, but of course, try to avoid addiction at the same time. The one way to get around the effects of chem addiction could be to invest in the chem resistance perk if you find yourself using them just a little bit too much. The main takeaway from here is, though, use them, don't just completely neglect them in the late game. That would be a mistake. Number 8. Not exploring all faction quests before committing to certain choices. Now, as with a lot of Bethesda games, you can get involved with a number of factions, and the different factions of Fallout 4 offer you distinct storylines, distinct rewards, and distinct endgame scenarios. Now, it is a mistake not to explore all of the faction quests in great detail before you commit to making any decisions that will significantly affect the end game, because quite frankly, your understanding of those factions will be limited and you won't be making a fully informed choice. Not to mention, the storylines themselves are worth getting stuck into regardless. So if you make a decision without exploring other factions, or hell, even getting involved with other factions at all, that's going to result in you missing out on a lot of great content, great experiences, powerful gear, and a potentially preferred ending to the game. So get involved with all of them, go through their quests, and then only make decisions after that. Number 9. Hoarding Caps. Here's one thing I see all of the time. Players love watching their caps count pile up like they're saving for retirement in the Commonwealth. Lord knows why. But in the late game, that money is meant to be spent, so don't be frugal, because by doing so, you're effectively locking yourself out of some seriously cool equipment, and quite frankly, it'll make the late game more difficult for you. Vendors throughout the Commonwealth can sell rare ammo, legendary gear, big shipments of crafting materials, and so on and so forth. So instead of dying with 20,000 caps in your pocket, you should invest in better weapons, better mods, better supplies that keep you alive. It's Fallout 4 after all, and hoarding caps doesn't win you the game. Spending them wisely does. Number 10, not creating backup saves. Now, what I mean by this is, in Fallout 4, like many Bethesda games to be honest, they can bug out mid-quest and some fights can go sideways. But more importantly, you can get locked into choices you make along your journey, so my tip here is to always make a couple of manual save points so you can go back to this point if you end up making a decision you actually regret, or if something totally unexpected happens. Or, of course, as I said, if the game bugs out and you lose your progress, or whatever. Don't just rely on the autosaving in Fallout, make a couple of those manual saves for the ultimate insurance policy if things go tits up. So there you have it, folks. There are 10 huge mistakes you want to be avoiding in Fallout 4 in the later stages of the game. Hopefully this video helps you conquer the Commonwealth without frustration, and hopefully it makes the game far more enjoyable for you. And on top of that, I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in my next one.